See if I can do this real quick. You always want to make sure that you don't poke your fingers with wire, but I will wind wire around the arm or other appendage even a little bit more in areas, because what it does is allows for my sculpture material, which will be Sculpey at this point, to bite into something where it doesn't slide around on a really smooth wire. So I'm not going to have to do it so much on the epoxy putty, because the epoxy putty has a little bit of tooth and is imperfect. The fingers I will eventually have to, since they will be so thin, I will probably not wind them with wire like this. I will probably just build a little thin layer of Sculpey in the shape of the finger, and that'll be baked, and then I will work over the top of that. I'll kind of talk through that process on another video. But you can see this gives me a little bit of area where there's a little bit more armature showing, where I will actually be able to build clay right on top of that. The clay will not slide around too much. I will probably wind wire around the entire body like I did up here on the spine. And that, once again, gives me a nice little tooth or an area for the clay to kind of bite into so it doesn't slide around on the armature. This dude, I will probably, maybe we can snip these down right now, because I'm getting to the point where I want to get started on this sculpture. So you can see some of the tools I use here, some of the wire over here. Here's my little cup of ball bearings. I even made a little stand real quick that I will put this head on when I decide to bake it. So when I bake it, I don't have to lay it flat on the bottom of, oh, look at this. Hey, kitty, how you doing? She always has to check out what's going on down here. Feels like she's missing something. All right, you can see, oh, I need to lose maybe about 2 inches or so, which I will do right now. This one I will probably build the curl at the end of the tentacle in Sculpey. This wire being not quite thin enough to get that right. But you can see, here we go. Starting to get a little bit of a more realistic length. You can see that there's going to be a lot of buildup, but I have a nice base to kind of work my Sculpey up on. I don't know if I brought any Sculpey over here. Yeah, grab a lump. It's my workstation over here. I don't want anyone to see what I'm working on. Got a sculpture that I had to cover up this morning. But yeah, I'm going to work up a real basic under sculpt for this guy. Kind of show you what I do when I have the bare wire like this. Maybe it takes a little bit more. Get some of those cool bends in my armature. A lot of it's going to be built into when I start putting all those little facets and wrinkles and everything into his, what do they call them? Some people call them the trunk when they're referring to Man-Thing. Kind of like an elephant's trunk. What I'll probably do is maybe keep the material up off of the head so I can still kind of bend these tentacles around. The key is leaving yourself options that putting clay down on this, or Sculpey down on these wires, is going to give me something to kind of sculpt over the top of. I have to keep it very, very thin, as you can see. More like just kind of a skin over the top. At this point, I may even give myself a bit. Probably working a little faster than I normally would because I'm shooting a video. Could probably do time lapse or whatever, but yeah, you can see these things start to take shape I might, like I said, sometimes, you know, at this stage, you might put a little bit too much material down, and when you're building over the top of it, you know, oh man, these hanging trunks are getting too thick, and you have to kind of go back in with a Dremel and make sure you get it back down to the size that you want it, and then start over again. And that's okay. It's part of the process. I will probably end up Dremeling these anyway, but it gives me a little something to start with. Once again, trying to keep it from getting too thick on here. And I took a few minutes and tried to make sure my camera was lined up with my eye line, so I'm hoping that the stuff is not going off screen too much. This is kind of like my flagship launch of this GoPro, so I'm sure there's going to be a learning curve on what I can and can't do and how to line up the lens properly. And so bear with me. We're going to be been talking to the guys at Mondo, and they requested that I document this sculpture, and this is the very first video that I'm trying out. And who knows if this ends up this first shoot doesn't work out right, maybe I'll just tear this guy apart and try it again. So, but so far so good. Kind of shows you the process that I go through just to get this thing ready. I might even go in and start to build this brow out, give myself a little bit more mass, something for that next layer, the detail layer of Sculpey to kind of bite into. It also starts to give me an idea of how big this head is going to need to be. Once again, if I build it out too much, that I can always go back and Dremel it out, Dremel it down. I think I remember hurrying, listening to an interview with some of my favorite sculptors, and the Dremel becomes a very important tool at one point when, as you're sculpting and Dremeling down and sculpting and Dremeling down, at this stage where you're just trying to get that really good solid base that you can work your detail layer of Sculpey over the top of. But you can see that I'm starting to get a little bit of the shape of that skull. Where's my side view? You can see I don't want to go into areas where all of a sudden my forehead's protruding so much that when I go with my layer of detail, I'm starting to change my forms too much. But you can see I'm starting to get the basic shapes to where I have a nice under sculpt. Once again, leaving these areas, I'm going to leave them open so I can still move my tentacles around if I need to. I got some good reference for my tentacle here. Stupid cat. All right.